Millions of people are waiting to watch their merciless death. Serial killers are ready to show their skills in hotels. The movie begins when someone secretly takes a picture of the Pine Hotel. The scene shifts to Mrs. Spring, who is cleaning an area in the hotel. Suddenly, she senses that someone has entered the room. She pauses and turns off the vacuum cleaner for a moment to check, but there is nobody around. By the time she starts the vacuum cleaner again, it won't turn on. It turns out that the wire is broken. Suddenly, an electrician passes by and mentions that it looks like a rat chewed through the wire. Mrs. Spring thanks him, and he leaves the area. Suddenly, a man in black appears from behind, his terrifying look making Mrs. Spring afraid. In an attempt to save herself, she backs up and falls onto a glass table, injuring herself while the man stands right in front of her. The scene shifts to Roy, who is watching recorded videotapes of his kids, who are now grown up and barely have time for him. Suddenly, the tape gets stuck, and Roy goes to Kevin's room to ask him to look at what's wrong. Kevin is too busy live streaming his game and does not want to come. But when Roy insists, Kevin angrily pauses his live stream and begins to investigate. Suddenly, the doorbell rings, and Roy's elder daughter is at the door with the cops. They left her with a warning that she would end up behind bars if they catch her stealing alcohol again. Roy gets angry at her, as she is only 16, and coming home with the cops is not what he expected of her. But Tyler gets annoyed and, without listening to her mom and dad, rushes to her room. Roy and Elaine discuss that they should try to keep their kids away from bad influences and decide to go on a weekend trip away from home. Excitedly, Elaine books a room at the Pine Hotel, where, at the same time, Mrs. Spring is crying as she is tied to a chair. She pleads for freedom, but a masked man brings a drill and kills her with it. The next day, as Roy and his family check into the hotel, a hot couple is already booking their room. As they leave, Roy pays for the room manually, as Mr. Lockwood mentions there is no internet or payment system using machines. Meanwhile, bored with the trip idea, Tyler sees two French guys drinking at the bar and starts a little chat. She shares that she was going to her favorite concert this weekend, but her parents brought her here instead. One of the boys tells her they have only 2 tickets for the same concert. He gives her his room number, and Tyler promises to stop by during her stay. Just then, her mom, Elaine, enters the bar searching for her. The bartender finds Elaine so attractive that he serves her drinks and tells her she can visit him anytime, as he will be there. Elaine tries to cheer up Tyler and make her feel included in their little trip, but her efforts barely work. On the other hand, a hotel employee leaves after work and is about to get into her car when she sees a man tying a noose to a tree, pointing at her and threatening to hang her. Terrified, she tries to get her car keys, but someone has stolen them. The mysterious guy appears from behind and hits her. As she falls, he attacks and kills her. Mr. Lockwood rolls the dice when a hotel employee asks him about Mrs. Spring. Lockwood tells him to find her in the basement. Meanwhile, Roy walks through the corridors and sees an electrician trying to repair a security camera, but a drunk man strikes him, causing him to fall. At the same time, the worker goes to the basement to find Mrs. Spring when Lockwood hits him from behind, and he falls unconscious. Roy and Elaine check into the hotel room, and Tyler looks annoyed that she has to share the room with her brother, Kevin. Her parents show her 2 tickets to the zoo, which they plan to visit the next day, and remind her of how much they used to enjoy going there when they were little. But they can see Tyler is not enjoying anything at all. Meanwhile, Lockwood tells another hotel worker to get rid of the tied-up man who was asking for Mrs. Spring. The electrician takes his money for the work he did and says he wants to stay out of everything. As he leaves, Lockwood presses some buttons, locks the hotel's outside door, and shouts that the show has started. The bartender fixes his game machine when a masked man stands behind him. He tells the bartender that he has closed the bar, but the man won't go away. So, he finishes the game and turns around, but the muscular masked man pops one of his eyes out by banging his head against the game machine and then kills him after subjecting him to horrific torture. It's late, and Tyler smiles as she looks at the pictures of her and the French guy in the bar. She decides to silently go to his room. He welcomes her, but his friend dislikes her. She takes the boy upstairs using the stairs that only she knows about, as she has visited the hotel several times, and Mrs. Spring told her about the secret path. Meanwhile, her parents wake up and get worried when they see that Tyler is not in the room. Another masked man sneaks into the newlywed couple's room and initially kills the boy in the bathtub while the girl manages to escape. However, the guy kills her as well in the corridor. Tyler sees the stars on the rooftop while smoking, and her father takes Roy along to search for her in the hotel. He goes to the reception, but surprisingly, Lockwood is nowhere to be found, and the outdoors are locked as well. They don't see it, but someone is watching them through the security camera, and a masked man passes right behind them. He confirms that Elaine is alone in the room and knocks on the door initially. But when she looks through the peephole and sees a stranger standing outside, she doesn't open the door. A while later, she is surprised when the door suddenly opens despite being locked. While Roy asks various people in the hotel about Tyler, no one has seen her until an old man named David tells him that he saw the French boys and that they are staying in room 209. So Roy can probably check that room. At the same time, Elaine waits for Roy and begins reading a book when an unknown intruder tries to suffocate her with a rope. She tries to escape and throws various things at him, but then she gets stuck, and the intruder kills her by slitting her throat. The whole killing scene is live-streamed on the internet, and Lockwood makes sure the world sees the game. On the screen, it shows that Elaine has been eliminated. Tyler wants to leave her parents and the hotel behind to attend the concert, so the boy shares that he can use his friend's tickets and they can escape right away. Knowing that escaping through the front door would be dangerous as her parents might stop her, they decide to use the pipe to get to the ground floor. Her dad knocks on the French guy's room door, but no one answers. They decide to check their own room, hoping Tyler has returned there. Meanwhile, Lockwood untapes the mouth of the sanitary staff. The worker requests to be left alive, saying he will help Lockwood with whatever he is doing. But Lockwood puts the tape back on and tells him that he doesn't need his help, then wears a plastic bag over his clothes to avoid blood splashes. He then kills the sanitary worker by stabbing him in the face. However, he misses the CCTV footage showing that Tyler and the boy escaped the hotel through a different route. When Roy opens his room's door, he is surprised to see blood on the handle. He rushes inside and finds Elaine's corpse on the floor, covered in blood. Grieved, he tells Kevin to stay away and not let him enter the room to see that his mother has died. David passes by, sees the corpse, and mentions that he sensed something strange was already going on in this hotel. He shows his ID, revealing that he is a former LAPT officer, and asks Roy to come with him to find Tyler. They leave Kevin in David's room, asking him to lock the door and never unlock it, no matter what happens. Kevin begins playing video games while Tyler starts to feel sad that she shouldn't have left the hotel without telling her parents. At the same time, David takes his gun while leaving the room and goes to the poolside of the hotel, where the drunk guy also appears. His wife scolds him, and now Lockwood decides to tell the hotel residents that they are in a game show that is live streaming, and whoever survives in the end will get a hefty amount of money. After the announcement, the lights suddenly turn off, and when they turn back on, they see the corpse of the drunk guy, who is hanging with a hook, soaked in blood. Suddenly, the masked men appear and begin killing innocent guests. But David refrains from using his gun to kill the masked people, even when Roy asks him to. They kill many people while David takes Roy aside and hides. On the other hand, Lockwood's computer screen shows a security breach from a hotel room. Kevin, as a tech genius, manages to find the network and receives the data. He opens the folder and sees the live footage of masked people killing the hotel guests. Meanwhile, Lockwood quickly scrolls through the data and discovers that the breach occurred from Roy's room. He starts a live video chat with Kevin and threatens him, saying he will be killed for his curiosity. He asks him to think about where his mom is. At the same time, two girls and a guy leave their room, sensing the lights flickering. They see two strangers standing at the other end of the corridor. Initially, they think they are playing some kind of game with them, but suddenly one of the masked men stabs a guest with a double knife. They grab the boy, but one of the girls manages to run away and, on the stairs, finds Kevin, who is trying to find his sister. One of the masked men follows them, and the girl begins running, taking Kevin with her upstairs and knocking on every door to hide. The strange flickering lights add to the tension, and no one opens the doors. The masked players play tic-tac-toe on the body of a hotel guest until he feels faint. Meanwhile, Kevin and the girl get stuck in the elevator as the masked man approaches. The elevator opens, and a masked girl captures the girl, leaving Kevin outside. She hugs her while Lockwood enjoys the game in his room. Roy and David get out of their hiding place just as the girl exits the elevator, followed by the masked girl. The masked girl overpowers her on a trolley, but the girl grabs a fork and stabs the masked girl in the neck, killing her. Finding a window, the girl tries to escape, but a masked man stabs her in the face as soon as she appears on the other side. Roy gets frustrated when he sees that Kevin is not in the room. At the same time, the muscular masked man enters the room and attacks Roy. David saves him by hitting the masked man with an iron object. The masked man throws David away, but just as he is about to kill Roy by throwing furniture at him, David fires a bullet and kills the masked man. Meanwhile, Kevin hides from the attacker in the kitchen but keeps searching for him until he finds him. Suddenly, the security alarm beeps, indicating that an intruder has entered the house, and the game is paused. Tyler insists that the boy return to the hotel, and they do not know what is happening there, but they sense something strange as the lights flicker and no one can be seen in the hotel. Suddenly, a masked player appears with a big spear in his hand. He kills both Tyler and the boy in one go by piercing the spear into their stomachs. At the same time, as Roy walks around a corner in the hotel, a masked player attacks him. He requests David to shoot the attacker, but David now realizes that it's some kind of game and that the winner will earn money, so he walks away, leaving Roy to fend for himself. David enters Lockwood's room and sees the prize money on the dashboard, which amounts to $1 million, and he gets excited. He begins monitoring the fight between Roy and the masked player. Suddenly, Roy gets out of the camera's view, and he reappears in the corridor after killing the masked player and wearing his outfit. At the same time, Lockwood removes his white shroud and appears as the masked game player. He takes off his face mask and then stabs David in the stomach with a knife because David interfered with the game. David had been observing the game for years and had planned to participate, which made Lockwood angry. Afterward, Lockwood is astonished that only a child is surviving in the game, Kevin, and shows this to David as well. He then kills David and announces that only one guest remains. 2 masked players rush to find the last survivor and become the winner. One of the masked men is Roy, and suddenly Tyler regains consciousness and removes the spear from her stomach. At the same time, Roy finds Kevin and tells him to play dead while he takes out the remaining masked player. Lockwood rewinds the footage and sees that Roy is lying and that Kevin is alive. He announces over the mic for the masked player to kill Roy. Roy overpowers the masked player, and then Kevin stabs him with a knife. Afterwards, Roy puts his face on the stove, and Kevin sets his face on fire, killing the final player. Lockwood becomes enraged at the unexpected ending of the game and rushes to kill Roy with a hammer. He finds Roy standing near the front door and attacks him, but Roy dodges the axe attack and punches Lockwood until he becomes unconscious. He hugs Kevin, relieved that they survived, but then Tyler sees a masked man standing behind her little brother and pierces the spear into her father's back. She didn't realize she accidentally killed her own father. A while later, Lockwood regains consciousness and attacks her, but she kills him with the axe. The police take Kevin and Tyler to safety. While many men, including the rescue staff, watch the live stream of the game ending, Kevin and Tyler have won. The game designer announces that he will return with another exciting game, and the movie ends here. If you like this movie, then don't forget to subscribe the channel.